Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever looked at a simple t-shirt and wondered, how can one cost $5 while another costs $50? Well, the answer is hidden in a number that businesses, frankly, live and die by. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that number and talk all about costing. So let's start with something we see every single day: price tags. Believe me, there's always a secret story hiding behind them. Think about a pizza for a second. You pay one price, right? But what did it actually cost the restaurant to make it? I can promise you it's way more than just the cost of the cheese, the dough, and the sauce. And that's exactly where costing comes into play. It's the method businesses use to track every single expense, from the super obvious stuff to the really hidden things, to figure out the true cost of making something. And look, this is so much more than just an accounting chore. It's literally about survival. When you understand your costs, you can set a price that actually makes you money, you can plan for profits down the road, and you can spot where you might be bleeding cash. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. To really see how this works, we're going to perform a little autopsy on a simple product and break down all its costs. Let's imagine we're building the cost of a cake, piece by piece. First, you've got the stuff you'd expect, right? The raw materials, your flour, sugar, eggs. Then, of course, you've got to pay the baker who put it all together. You add those two up and you've got your starting point. In the business world, we call these direct costs. And why? Well, it's pretty simple. You can directly trace them right to the finished product. You can literally see the ingredients in the cake, and you know for a fact a baker had to be paid to make it. But hold on, that is just the tip of the iceberg. The direct costs, they're the easy part. The really interesting costs are the ones that are kind of hiding in plain sight. I mean, think about it. What about the rent for the bakery itself? Or the electricity that kept that oven hot? What about the supervisor's salary, the person who makes sure the whole kitchen runs smoothly? That cake could not exist without these things, but they aren't physically in the cake. And this brings us to a really important split. On one hand, you have direct costs, like the cloth for a shirt, super easy to trace. But on the other hand, you have these indirect costs, things like the electricity bill for the entire factory. I mean, they're absolutely essential, but how on earth do you assign a tiny slice of that electric bill to just one shirt? It's a lot trickier. Now, there's a handy word for all of these indirect costs, all bundled together: overhead. So next time you hear a business owner complaining about their overhead, you'll know they're talking about all those necessary background expenses like rent, utilities, and office salaries. Okay, so now let's slice this up another way, because not all costs are created equal. They actually behave really differently depending on how much stuff a company is making. First up, you've got your fixed costs. These are the ones you can count on, for better or worse. A business has to pay them no matter what. And the perfect example is the monthly rent for a factory. You pay the same rent whether you make one single product or 10,000 of them. And this chart shows it perfectly. Just look, production ramps up from 1,000 units all the way to 2,000. But that bar for the rent cost, it stays completely flat. It doesn't move an inch. That is a fixed cost in action. Now, the total opposite of that is a variable cost. This cost goes up and down, almost perfectly in sync with how much you're producing. The more you make, the more you spend. Just think about the raw materials you need for each item. And you can see how different this chart looks, right? As the number of units goes up, that material cost just climbs right alongside it. It just makes sense. If you're going to make more stuff, you need to buy more stuff to make it with. And there's one last way to think about costs: by their function or their job. So you've got your production costs, which is the money spent to actually make the thing. Then you've got administrative costs to run the office and keep the lights on. And finally, selling costs. That's all the marketing and sales efforts to make sure you even know the product exists. So we've sliced and diced all these different costs. We've got them all sorted out. Now we get to the really important part. What in the world do you do with all of this information? Okay, you've done the hard work. You've calculated all your direct, indirect, fixed, and variable costs. So, now what? Well, this is the moment that costing goes from being just numbers on a page to being a business superpower. So what's the big payoff here? It's all about making decisions with confidence. If you know for a fact that a shirt costs you 200 rupees to make, you know you have to price it higher than that to make a profit. If you see your energy bills creeping up, you know it's time to find a way to be more efficient. This knowledge even helps you make the really tough calls, like deciding if a product is even worth making anymore. It basically turns guesswork into a real strategy. And really, that's what this all boils down to. Costing isn't just about crunching numbers in a spreadsheet. It's about turning that raw data into actual knowledge, and then using that knowledge to make better decisions that guide the whole company. So I'll leave you with this little challenge. The next time you grab a cup of coffee, just take a second to think about it. You know you're paying for the beans and the milk. But what else? What are the hidden costs? The barista's wages, the rent on that corner cafe, the electricity for the espresso machine? Yep, you're paying for all of it. And now you know exactly how that works.